Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing great today. Folks, if you missed it with Pete Garcia, you missed it. We just finished a Zoom call Q&A session just a moment ago. And man, it was great to see him again. I saw him, we had him over here in Australia for the conference a couple of years ago. So good to see him again and just answer these fantastic questions. Folks, we're doing these Zoom calls every Wednesday in the US, 5:30 Central Standard Time. It would be great to have you guys come. This is why I'm trying to get, some great speakers in here. I can't do that all the time. In fact, unfortunately, I got to make this announcement. Next week is supposed to be Mondo Gonzalez, but if you haven't heard already, his mother has died recently, and so he he had to back out of next week's event. So please just join us in prayer for support of him and his family. But the week after that, we've got none other than JB Hickson joining us on that Wednesday Zoom call. So we hope to see you there. In the meantime, here's Pete Garcia. I hope you all enjoy.
Okay, here we go. My question is about the tribulation saints who will not take the mark and will survive the tribulation. Will this be a spiritual protection over them, or are there flaws in the surveillance system that will have limited tracking for those who have not taken the mark? How they will survive? That's another question. People often talk about getting off the grid or fleeing to the hills so as to avoid tracking. Would this even work at this point in time?
Yes.
Wow.
Next question. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, there's a couple of things. I'm writing them down. So the first part was tribulation saints. Are they supernaturally protected, or is the Antichrist system broken and inept and they're able to slip through the cracks, right?
Right. Will there be any flaws?
It doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of flaws in the system. Daniel 7. Is it Daniel 7? Let me get my Bible real quick. Daniel 7 and Revelation 13 seems to indicate that he's got things locked down pretty tight. But I don't want you to take my word for it. Let's go to the word. The real word.
By the way, do you think that question is kind of even asking from the standpoint of will there be a pre-tribulation rapture of the church, or are we going to enter into this? Diane, do you feel that question that's what they're asking as well?
Yes. Yes and no. For the people who are left behind, is there a chance for them, if they don't want to participate, is there a flaw in the system that they can escape through? You know how you have preterists? I mean, not preterists, but you have, maybe, is that the word? The people who plan for these huge events. They got their meal kits that last for 30 years. These type of people who are going to live off the grid, do you think that... right, that's it. That's what I'm looking for.
Preppers.
Do you think they will be able to slip through the cracks and not be detected? And live off? Is that pretty close, Evangeline? Is that what you're asking? You see what I mean?
Because you know that some tribulation saints will survive the tribulation.
Right.
Yeah. So what I was going to show you here is in Daniel 7, and then I'm going to earmark Revelation 13. Daniel 7, verse 23, and it says, "The fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on the earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it into pieces." And then you skip down to verse 25, talking about the Antichrist. "And he shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. And then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time." Revelation 13:7 says, "And it was granted to him, the Antichrist, to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation, and all who dwell on the earth will worship him." And then if you go to Revelation 7, where it talks about the 144,000, but it also mentions the martyrs, and he's talking about all of those that they can't be counted. what's fascinating to me about that is that he just gets told there's 144,000. And in the next chapter, it talks about there was an army that was 200 million. But when it comes back to the saints, he said it's innumerable. We can't count it. And so it seems like there's a huge soul harvest after the rapture and because of the persecution of the Antichrist. So I would say that it's not due if there are, and there will be tribulation saints that are preserved through that will survive, but they are not, there's not going to be a whole lot of them. It seems that's what it seems to indicate. The largest number that will survive at the end, it seems to be is, I guess proportionally speaking, will be the Jewish people that are preserved in Petra or wherever they're hiding or being hid. But it seems like God is supernaturally going to have to protect these people from the system. And just looking at what technology is available today, I mean, back in 2017, I was teaching a class in San Antonio for senior officers on drones and robotics and things. And at that time, I had a spreadsheet that had about 40 different kinds of robotic systems that we could use. And it was everything from like the quadrupedal dogs, robot dogs, to the bipedal robot men, to things that look like centipedes, things that swam in the water, things that flew, things that crawled, things that could go underground, subterranean. I mean, it's going to be like a Minority Report, except the entire world will be like that. And I think with Starlink blanketing the planet, but whenever I guess he's trying to put up like 40 or 60,000 satellites, Elon Musk. And then with Palantir, I think Palantir is incredibly dangerous. I think that is probably going to be, if it's not the system that the Antichrist is using, it's going to stem from Palantir. So Peter Thiel is, to me, a very likely candidate for either the Antichrist or for, he was born in Germany, so he does come out of the old Roman Empire, but either from out of he'll be either the Antichrist or he'll be like one of the 10 kings, or he'll play some major role in this. But so to answer the question, I do think there's going to be survivors, tribulation survivors, both Jew and Gentile. I think they're going to have to be supernaturally protected. Just like in Revelation 12, God is supernaturally protecting the Jews as they're fleeing from the Antichrist. And there'll probably be ways that God is able to supernaturally protect the Jews or the Gentiles scattered around the world at that time from what's coming in some way or shape or form. But you got to remember, God has started the world over twice already, right? So he started in the beginning with 2 people, and then he started it again with Noah and his family with 8 people. So even if there's a small number, we know that inside of the kingdom age, there's going to be this massive population that the world's never seen. Plus, the world is going to be terraformed by God back to some paradisical state, similar to like the Garden of Eden, I guess, something to that effect, but kind of around the world. So there won't be Sahara deserts. There's not going to be Antarctica, where there won't be places where people can't live. People are going to be able to live everywhere, and it'll be able to hold a huge population.
Excellent. Good answer. Thank you so much for that.
Amazing.
All right. Anybody want to add anything to that?
I do.
Go ahead.
I had a question.
Oh, well, let me just add to this real quick. Just to kind of compound on what you said here, Pete, I was just in Singapore for work 2 weeks ago. And I was going to say this on Tom's show, but look, I was having a conversation with the taxi driver that was there in Singapore. They've got these little dashboard units that basically the government has, you've got to install them. It's cameras, it's tracking, all that kind of stuff. And even the driver said, you're not getting away from anything. The government can tap in, turn those cameras on anytime they want to. It's probably recorded and whatever. And even just to get into the country, I had to give them a thumbprint. So, I mean, there's no getting away from it. Even eventually what they'll, if people scatter, I believe if they scatter to, the open lands, eventually they're going to start hunting people that way, I believe.
Yep, I'd agree.
All right. So on to our next question. This question is from Wendy May.
Mike, if you can submit that in the comments section, that'd be great.
I don't know how to do it. I'm not that techie to know how to do that.
All right. Well, we've got a whole
Like
list.
it was so simple is just,
Mike,
Pete
Mike,
mentioned the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
go for it.
Thank you. The only thing I was just going to say is I'm sorry for sounding absolutely stupid, because I got to ask you, can you please define Palantir? I've never heard that before. I don't know what it is.
It's a software system program that basically ties in a bunch of it's consolidates information, and it also is the word Palantir comes from Lord of the Rings, that crystal ball that Saruman, the evil wizard, had that connected him with Sauron. That Palantir is that looking glass. This is what it's named after, and it is sees everything, it consolidates, it tracks everything, it tracks all this data. The U.S. Department of Defense, or I guess the War Department now, is just did this $15 billion contract, and they're going to put Palantir into everything. So it's an all-inclusive software AI platform that basically manages data, consolidates data, distributes data. And in order to do that, it has to have access to everything. So they want more and more access for this thing. And the more access it has, the more it can, manipulate, consolidate, disseminate, and basically control.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've never seen Lord of the Rings, so I don't know. I don't
Okay.
get into that kind of stuff. So that's why. Okay, thank you. John.
So the next question is a military person. Any comment
Oh, Diane, you're cutting out there.
about UC's had to do with it? Sorry. Okay, can you guys hear me? Hear me now?
Oh boy, your internet.
Uh-oh.
You're in and out, yeah.
Can you hear? Yeah. Hold on. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Just start praying.
Thank you, Lord.
Okay. Are we good now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. As a military person has had to deal with in the last 2 years,
That again.
and current is possibly still ahead. Uh-oh.
Okay, Diane, I've got the question right here. Let me ask this. I think my connection
And what?
is a bit better here because
Okay.
you're in and out. Hi, Pete. This is a two-part
Okay.
question. As a military person, any comments about what
That's it.
you see the IDF has had to deal with in the last 2 years and currently, and what is possibly still ahead of them?
So the IDF has basically been conducting probably one of the hardest types of warfare that any nation can do, and that's urban warfare. In World War II and World War I and all these major battles that we've had, anytime that a battle can be fought in the woods, in the hills, and the plains, I mean, that's always preferable than doing it in street corner to street corner. It is incredibly difficult. The U.S. had the worst time of it back in 2005 through 2008 in Iraq. Going through all the different neighborhoods in Ramadi and Baghdad and all these places, it was incredibly tough to go through those. Because it's not just you're going block to block and house to house and building to building, but you've got to worry about everything that's above you vertically inside of those buildings, as well as anything that's subterranean, which obviously Israel's had to do with all the tunnels, the network tunnels that Hamas has been tunneling for the last 20 years. So they've had probably the toughest fight that any army can have. So I think what to take away from that is that they're going to come out incredibly battle hardened. And I think that the fact that they were able to conduct this war with as minimal loss of life, I know everybody's complaining about the the war deaths, which have been greatly inflated by Hamas. They propagandize that to bolster their public, propaganda campaign against Israel. But in reality, Israel's probably one of the most, I want to call it compassionate, probably one of the most compassionate armies. That's when they're going to come in and, hey, we're going to take out this city block because it's being used to launch rockets. They send flyers, they send text messages. They say, hey, get out of there. We're getting ready to flatten this place. So they've had an incredibly tough time of it. And, we just think, well, why isn't this war over with? I mean, they're having to go, literally street to street, block to block, and then have to go back over it again and go up and down, up in the buildings and underground, hundreds of feet through the tunnels. And at the same time, they have no idea where these hostages are at most times because they're being moved around in the dark underground. So they don't want to collapse these tunnels just yet until they get the hostages out or flood them. They can flood the tunnels if they have access to water, and they know that there's no hostages in those areas at the time. So for that aspect of it, I think that they've had an incredibly tough fight with Hamas. And thankfully, Hezbollah did not join in on October 7th. Had they joined in, it would have been 10 times worse, I think, because of the assaults in the northern territory, as well as what they're facing there in the south. So for whatever reason, they didn't join in right away on the fray. It was minimal shelling and stuff from the other side of the Golan. And Israel, though, took advantage of that lull and were able to basically take out most of the leadership, or if not all the leadership, of Hezbollah with the pager attack and the walkie-talkies, and then taking out Nasrallah and all of his top chiefs, as well as all the other targeted assassinations that they've been able to carry out with these precision strikes, both in Lebanon as well as in Syria and other places. So this battle, let's just say hypothetically that the Lord wasn't coming back for another 50, 60 years, this would be one of the most studied battles in terms of what would tacticians and strategists look at and teach in the war colleges. I think this would be one of those kind of battles that we've greatly studied and marveled after of how they've been able to execute this. Now, it began with a tremendous blunder. They let their guard down. I don't know all the politics or all the reasons why Hamas was able to do what they were able to do on October 7th, 2023. But for whatever reason, it happened. But in the meantime, they've been able to really just turn the tables and get rid of most of their enemies surrounding them on their borders. And I think what the main challenges they have left to go is part of it's political and the other part of it's military. So the biggest area in their country that is still largely unsecured fully is Judea and Samaria. So I was thinking that had the United Nations voted for a Palestinian state, which they did, but it was non-binding. Had they done that, Netanyahu could have very easily annexed Judea and Samaria, made it official, and to say, hey, we're done. So if you take away anywhere for them to have a Palestinian state inside of Israel, the argument becomes moot at that point, because no other country wants a Palestinian state. I'm all about a Palestinian state. You want to have a Palestinian state? There's Jordan right there. They can carve out some areas. There's Egypt. There's Saudi Arabia. There's, they got the whole Muslim world, which is like, I don't know, 3/4 of the countries over there that they can create a Palestinian state. But they are not interested in a Palestinian state. They are just interested in weakening Israel. So, secondly, think about the United Nations vote for a second. How different would today be had Donald Trump not turned his head just a little bit like this on that fateful day in Pennsylvania in July? Man. If he had not just turned his head just an inch, this would be a wholly different story, because what would have happened was Nikki Haley would have been the presumptive nominee. She stayed in the race, even though she didn't have a snowball's chance in hell in making winning the election. She stayed in for some reason. Why did she stay in? Well, I think she knew something was up, and that had Trump gotten taken out, she would have been the presumptive nominee, because Donald Trump hadn't named a vice president at that point. So she would have been in by default because that the Republican convention was that Monday, and that Pennsylvania thing was Saturday. So for whatever reason, God is delayed it for a reason, for a short season. I think that He's given us a reprieve for more people to come in. And think about how many people have come to salvation after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Everything in between, the church, underground churches in Iran, in the Middle East, and everywhere. Man, there's been time for more and more people to come in. And I don't know what happened. I was thinking about this today, unrelated to anything we were talking about, but I was thinking about the persecuted church, and I wonder if we get to such a state where either persecution drops off to a lull, or it goes up to such a state that it's just the blood in the ground is screaming out to God from so many people dying over and over and over and over because of the persecution. So it's maybe one extreme or the other, but I think that is the fullness of the Gentiles that's mentioned in Romans 11:25. A theory. It's just my theory on it, but we'll see how it all shakes out.
Unbelievable answer. There was a second part to this. By the way, this is Wendy May who actually asked this question. And Diane, you can ask the next one, but this is the second part of it, which is you've sort of touched on this, your comments on the Gaza Strip, but incorporate, what do you think of the peace plan that's been proposed and the future of Gaza and the Gazan people?
I posted on Twitter, X. It's hard to call it X.
Yeah.
I posted like the day of, I was like, this Donald Trump is an idiot if he thinks he's going to get anywhere with this. And here's my thoughts on this. When it comes to something domestically inside the United States, when Trump says he wants to do something and he's got a legitimate reason to do it, it's probably going to happen, no matter how insane it is. The Gulf of America, who would have ever thought? or Canada, we got like 4 provinces now wanting to join the United States, like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and maybe even British Columbia, but they're all in talks of breaking away from Eastern Canada. So when it comes to America and the American continent, when Trump wants to do something, he's going to get it done. But when it comes to stuff overseas and he's dealing with other leaders of other nations, it's like 50-50. So in any times he's dealing with the Middle East, like the Qataris or the Bahrainis or the Arabs or whoever, his percentages keep dropping because you can't trust those people. They do not care about Donald Trump's aspirations for a Nobel Peace Prize. They don't care. They're thinking long term. They are not thinking this is the generation Christ is returning. They are thinking we still have hundreds of years left on the planet or whatever. So they're thinking long term. And that's why they're just going to tell him whatever they want to tell him. And the same thing with Hamas now. They came out with this 20-point peace plan. And now I think right off the bat, they rejected like 13 of the positions right off the bat. Now Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner over there negotiating in Cairo, trying to hammer out some kind of peace deal. And it's just going to drag on. It's going to drag on for a couple of days and more days. And next thing you know, 2 or 3 weeks will go by, and these poor hostages that have been just languishing in these tunnels, starving to death, something has got to give. I'm really hoping that Trump pulls his head out of his 4th point of contact and wakes up and says, you know what? Because the October 10th is the Nobel Peace Prize. If it goes beyond October 10th and today's the 8th, I think all hell is going to break loose with Gaza. I think they're basically just going to go through and finish. He's going to allow the Israelis, and they may go through and they may do a joint strike on Iran a second time if the Hamas drags this out beyond the 10th of October. Because I think Amir Sarfati was the one that pointed out that October 10th was the deadline for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Can I interrupt here, Pete?
Yeah.
Mary just posted in the comments here, though, too, and this is to touch on your point. Amir Sarfati just posted on Telegram, the hostages are coming home. The signing of the agreement between Israel and Hamas will take place at 12 noon, 11 hours from now. Let's pray Hamas doesn't back out. Pray that the hostages are returned.
let's see. We'll see what happens, right? I'm not going to hold my breath for that. I don't trust Hamas as far as I could throw them. Not
That's
anybody
right.
else.
They
They
never
have not.
miss an They never miss an opportunity to miss an
To
opportunity.
miss about opportunity.
Exactly.
So
I was
I
just
hope, hey, look, I don't want to sound totally pessimistic or skeptical about it. I hope they come home because that's the most important thing. Do I think they will? I mean, they were saying a couple of days ago, they didn't even know where all the hostages were. They've got some of these
Right.
hostages farmed out to mercenary groups that aren't even part of Hamas, splinter groups. So are they going to be able? They might string out one or two, or they might do that whole thing, onesie twosies kind of thing. But they're asking
Right.
for like 200 and something terrorists to be released, and I don't know. But as far as the future of Gaza, I mean, I can kind of see what Trump is planning. I can see that playing out where they hand it over to this kind of group of 7 or 10, however many people it is, different countries or organizations, leaders led by Tony Blair, and they turn it into some kind of a international whatever. I don't think it's going to be a resort area. I mean, it could very well be, but that place is so messed up right now. You're talking about it's a rubble farm. You guys, do you call rubble in Australia rubble? Or they call that down there? I don't know what it's called. It's like a junkyard, just with unexploded ordinances, with shrapnel, the collapsed tunnels, collapsed buildings. I mean, that place is going to take a while to fix.
I just wondered, was one thing I noticed from the beginning was, and I don't know if you thought of it, was the prophecy of Obadiah. And Obadiah talks about at the end of it, it's only one chapter, and I can't remember, it's not in front of me. Israel and Jacob will be a fire and a flame, and Esau will be rubble. And I was always taught for many years, Esau is those Palestinian people group. And I did hear recently in one of Bill Salas's messages where he tied it in as well, Obadiah with Gaza, where basically Israel will probably flatten them and Gaza will be rubble. Have you seen that prophecy in Obadiah, Pete?
I'm looking at it right now. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not super well versed in Obadiah. It's probably one of those books I haven't read in many years. But the thing about like Obadiah and the minor prophets, there are some, like Hosea 6 or 5:15 through 6:3 and Amos 9:14-15. There are some ones that I'm pretty clear, like I know that these are fulfillments or these are soon to be fulfillments. They're pretty clear. Some of these other ones, it's hard to tell whether it's talking about one of the conflicts that had happened in Israel's, ancient history, or if it's something that's still predicted in the last days, unless it says the last days or in the latter times or whatever. So it very well could be. And if Bill Salas is leaning in that direction, I kind of default to his judgment on that because he's probably one of the most studied guys on the minor prophets, as well as Ezekiel and the geographical and geopolitical areas right around Israel. So if he thinks it is, I would probably default to his.
If I can
link.
find it again, I'll flick you the link. But he did it like about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was really good.
It says, the south shall possess the mountains of Esau, the lowland shall possess Philistia, which is where Gaza is. This is verse 19. They shall possess the fields of Ephraim, the fields of Samaria, and Benjamin shall possess Gilead, and the captives of this host of the children of Israel shall possess the land of the Canaanites as far as Zarephath, and the captives of Jerusalem who are in Sepharad shall possess the cities of the south. Then Savior shall come to Mount Zion to judge the mountains of Esau, and the kingdom shall be the Lord. So this seems like it might be something that happens at the end of the tribulation time as well. So yeah, I see it here in verse 8.
Go to the last verses. I'd have to put it in front of me. The last verses talk about it being a fire and a flame and Esau rubble.
Yeah, it says verse 17, but on Mount Zion there shall be deliverance and there shall be holiness. The house of Jacob shall possess his possessions. The house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, but the house of Esau shall be stubble. And they shall kindle them and devour them. No survivor shall remain in the house of Esau, for the Lord has spoken. So I don't know that this is the fulfillment or we're watching it yet. This seems like this is still something that will happen because we know inside the 70th week that the Gentiles are still going to be trampling all over Israel, the land of Israel, until the very end, until Christ returns. So if it's a final fulfillment, I think the final fulfillment of that would be when Christ returns. But it could be, I don't know if they call it what they call it, a dual prophecy or double fulfillment or whatever. Maybe it's some of that.
So, Pete, in Zephaniah 2, verses 4 and 6, it talks about the pastures of that land going back to pastures. So I can't see it being built up again. Just correct me if I'm right there.
Zephaniah 2?
Zephaniah 2, 4, 6.
For Gaza shall be forsaken, Ashkelon desolate. They shall drive out Ashdod at noonday, and Ekron shall be uprooted. Woe to the inhabitants of the seacoast, to the nations of the Chethartites. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, land of the Philistines. I will destroy you, so there shall be no inhabitant. Yeah, I mean,
it goes down and saying about its pasture land, be sheep and cattle, I think, growing on there.
Yep.
Where's that at?
They shall feed their flock. Number 7.
Yeah, if you keep going.
Keep going down.
Oh, I see it. Okay. They shall feed their flocks in the houses of Ashkelon. They shall lie down at evening for the Lord and return their captives. Man, if it's talking about that, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
I know.
I just have to look at some of these things because, look at how much, I don't want to say division, but look how much differing opinions have been on something as clear than this, like Psalm 83. So then, there's people saying, no, that's an imprecatory prayer. Or, no, that's a fulfillment. Or I think of Psalm 83 being kind of a started in 1948. It is continuing. And when it finishes, I think that's when they arrive at the land of unwalled villages, kind of peace, security that kicks off Ezekiel 38, 39.
So, Pete, I was going to just chime in. So somebody has a question that's basically in the same parameter. It's still about Hamas. Now, there's no name on the question, but it says, why is President Trump back in Qatar? And the next one is, why doesn't Israel finish off Hamas? Everybody knows that Hamas can never be trusted. So it's the same thing.
So this all goes back to worldviews, and so Trump, he likes the Christian majority. He caters to the Christian majority, but the Christian majority that he, at least as of late, surrounded himself with the exception of a few people like Huckabee and some others. But when he has Paula White as the leader, the spiritual leader there at the White House, he's got some of these other folks. It seems to me that he either doesn't understand Bible prophecy or he doesn't believe it or he doesn't respect it. So for him, he's thinking long term. I'm thinking about my record. I want the Nobel Peace Prize, and a lot of that is driven by hubris and whatever. I think the hubris is blinding him on this aspect, that he is so wrapped up in trying to get the Nobel Peace Prize to silence his enemies, because he wants that to justify that he was the best president. And he's been an amazing president. Don't get me wrong; he's done an amazing job with a lot of different things. But when it comes to Israel, he's been listening to people that don't understand that Jerusalem is the apple of God's eye. That Zechariah 12, that these nations that try to divide the land are just going to destroy themselves. And I was writing down earlier all the nations, the major Western nations that had been, the pillars of Western civilization, UK, France, the US, Canada, even Australia to a certain degree. Any nation that starts to divide the land of Israel, you're starting to see major unrest, major economic problems, secessionist movements. You're having riots and protests, Antifa, Free Palestine, all these different groups causing all kind of mayhem. And the British there suffering under the dictatorship of Keir Starmer. It seems like these nations that are trying to divide the land are themselves, their nations are now being kind of torn apart. And even in the United States, look at what's happening in the United States. Trump is having to put federal troops or federalizing troops to go into major U.S. cities because of the political and the criminal unrest there, like Portland, Oregon, Chicago, Washington, D.C. He's threatened, L.A. and other cities, San Francisco. And these states are all, I mean, from the governors all the way down, are fighting him. And it's starting. If you go back and look at the parallels to Civil War, there's about 20 things that led to the Civil War, starting in the 1820s, going all the way up through the election of Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln, that was kind of the final straw for the South. But there had been many, many things prior to that had caused this polarization to happen. And they were divided, just think about it, they were just divided over really two issues, slavery and states' rights. Those were the two big issues of that time. Look how many issues we're divided over right now. Man, we're like, there's like 20, 30 different major issues that's dividing our country. So what did Jesus say? A house that's divided itself against itself cannot stand.
That's right.
I don't see how we last. The more he monkeys with Israel, the more he is causing our nation to start internally collapsing.
That's right.
So dangerous game he's playing.
Can I inject this? That might even be part of God's plan as well, because the United States is not even mentioned in the book of Revelations. And all is going on in our country, for example, is we're imploding, slowly imploding. Here in Chicago, they're threatening to throw the mayor and the governor, which they actually should be put in jail because they won't work with the Trump administration. And it's insanity. So if the United States were if we were attacked, we will probably be in a bad position in regards to focus, because it seems like there are all these different focuses going on. Pete, this is so good.
Before you move on, this is amazing, Pete. I want to add to that though too, just in regards to the economic side of things. Just 2 days ago, gold just soared past $4,000 an ounce. That's an all-time record ever. And it's not stopping. And that's really an indication of the weakness of the dollar that's going on right now. And I've seen Trump talking about how he wants a weaker dollar, how that is supposed to help trade with U.S. exports. So I don't know about that one. But nonetheless, to me, it just, there are so many implications that come with a weaker dollar, and it's just been declining for years now. Where it goes from here, who knows? There's a lot of speculation.
Trying to get the glare out of my glasses so I don't look like a computer robot machine face or whatever.
You're just fine. You're just fine. You ready for the next question?
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay. This question is from Kelly Schwartz. Am I saying that right? Kelly? Okay. Well, anyway, is she? I thought she was here. Okay. Anyway, okay. Well, let me draw it down. Okay. So if the Dome of the Rock sits where the third temple is to be built, how will it come to pass? It will be built there. What do you think will happen in order for it to be built?
Let me go to
Probably a boom.
So when you go to Ezekiel 38, let me see.
But God.
There is, okay. Verse 19 and 38, it says, "For in my jealousy," this is God speaking, "and in the fire of my wrath I have spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great earthquake in the land of Israel, so that the fish of the sea, the birds of heaven, the beasts of the fields, all creeping things that creep on the earth, and all men who are on the face of the earth shall shake at my presence. The mountains shall be thrown down, the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against God throughout all my mountains, and says to the Lord God, and every man's sword will be against his brother." So God is going to bring this massive earthquake that's going to happen to the land of Israel, and probably the whole area, the whole region is going to feel this. And I think that's when the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque are destroyed. If they're destroyed Now, there's always a possibility that the Hamas or the Houthis or some other group could launch a missile and God kind of tips it a little bit and just kind of nudges it and it lands and destroys the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. So if it's done by man, I think it's going to be a misfire by the Muslims attacking Israel. Because remember when they were fighting in Iran months and months ago, when Iran was launching those missiles, the Shahad missiles and stuff against Israel, they had several that were flying over the Dome of the Rock that could have landed there. So if it's not done that way, then I think God is going to destroy it at the end or the conclusion of Gog and Magog. And you got to remember something. Gog and Magog, when you look at, let's just say we're Jews and we don't believe in the New Testament, right? So we're looking at Ezekiel 37, which is the gathering of the nation of Israel, 36, 37. And then you go straight into Gog and Magog. And for them, right after Gog and Magog, 38 and 39, what do you have? You have the temple. It's all about the temple for the next 8 chapters from 40 to 48. So for them, I'm thinking that Gog and Magog is going to be like their version of Armageddon, since they don't have the New Testament and they don't recognize the New Testament. They might know about it, but they don't believe it. So for them, Armageddon is Ezekiel 38. So that's why I think they don't have any issues doing any kind of a peace covenant or whatever at the end of that, because God's going to supernaturally protect them. So they're thinking, hey, we're all good. We can do whatever we want. And so then somebody out of Europe rises up, their own European version of Donald Trump rises up, which is what they want. And he is able to make some kind of a deal, maybe building on the Abraham Accords or building on some other type of things that are currently in existence. And he's able to work out some deal that Israel thinks this is too good to pass up. And they might even look to him as a great political figure like Trump. And it may even be Trump. I have no idea. It'll be some political figure that will make some kind of a deal with him after that. Starts the clock for Daniel 9:27. With that said, that's why they don't think anything about it, because for them, the Messiah is not God incarnate. The Messiah was going to be a man, a Messiah ben Joseph or a Messiah ben David, and they do not recognize Christ as the legitimate Messiah. So they're still looking forward to somebody coming and making them the head of nations and elevating Israel above every other country in the world, which is what may happen at the end of Gog and Magog. If it is God that destroys the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque and levels it, so it's just like powder and rubble up there. And then the Jews are saying, finally, we can build our temple. There's no other reason why we can't do this. And then they're able to start building it at that point. And then that allows whoever this new European type of leader, maybe it's Peter Thiel or somebody else that rises to prominence after the rapture, because Christ he makes certain men rise to the occasion, right? Just like World War II allowed Churchill to rise to the occasion to become the man that he was, or Abraham Lincoln to rise to the man that he was, or Trump. And so I think that's what's going to happen with they're gonna think that they're all done. That because for them, again, they probably tie in Zechariah 12, Zechariah 14 with Ezekiel 38, and just like how we would connect like 1 Thessalonians 4 and 5 with 2 Thessalonians 2, and how we connect different epistles in the New Testament together because they're talking about the similar prophecies or whatever, or the same thing. They're probably looking at Zechariah as being a fulfillment of, or in comparison, or another aspect of Ezekiel 38, 39, because it's going to be such a supernatural delivery, right? And at the end of that, they're going to think they're invincible. And they're going to make some kind of a covenant, some kind of a deal, something with the leaders of the world at that time. And that is where they're going to enter into the 70th week is going to kickstart when that happens. So that's just kind of how I see it. And we know that the Jews right now, they don't recognize the New Testament at all. So they don't have the book of Revelation. They don't have the Olivet Discourse. They don't have the writings of Paul or Peter or James or any of the other apostles explaining what's going to happen in the last days. They think they're kind of done at that point.
Pete, I would think a question would be for the IDF is if they saw a trajectory coming from the Houthis and they worked out it was going to hit the Dome of the Rock, I'd love to see the meeting where they said, do we waste the Iron Dome on it?
I don't see them stopping it because it's not them destroying it, it's themselves, or it's the Muslims are destroying it. So
it would be an interesting scenario to watch. Yeah.
That I kind of wish it would happen that way. That would be strangely ironic.
It would, especially if they're tracking it and they go, watch this. And like you say, the finger of God has diverted them away before. So, but anyway.
There's
I
stories.
could just see the meeting. Benjamin, do we use the Iron Dome? Bibi, what do we do? And he's going, dirt, dirt, dirt.
Yeah. Is with as ingenious as they've been with the pager attacks and things like that, they have a new system now. It's called the
laser.
The laser. Yeah. So that they could easily stop it, but they're like, yeah, we're not going to stop it. You're attacking us. We're going to let your missile fall where it falls.
Dirt, dirt, dirt.
So I could see that playing out too.
Hi, Pete, we got a question from Diana Spencer. Her question is, can someone who has been turned over to their debased mind be saved, or is their fate sealed because they choose to continue in their evil ways? Some pastors say their fate is then sealed.
I kind of see it that way too. Although we are in this dispensation of grace. So I've seen some pretty wicked guys change their mind at the very end who led pretty terrible lives. So yeah, I don't know that it's out of the realm of possibility in this particular dispensation, but the minute that the rapture happens, there in 2 Thessalonians 2, the people that had been rejecting it outright and had already been given over to a debased mind prior to that, I think that there's no changing for them. I think God does give them over, and that's a terrifying thought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But to add to that, a person that is given over to their debased mind is they don't lose their salvation. So I don't know, is Diana on here, Spencer? They don't lose their salvation, but they will lose fellowship and they will lose their rewards if they're being turned over to that. So, yeah.
Good.
Okay. So I have a question and thank you for that, Pete. Thank you. This has been really great. This is so fun. Okay. I'm sorry. I get all excited like that. Okay. I have a question from Mike. You had a question, and I'm looking for it right now. Hold on.
I have it.
You got it? Okay.
I have it. Wait a minute.
Okay.
I just lost it. Oh, no. Here it is.
You got it.
Sorry. This is a very interesting question, Pete, and it's from Mike in the chat here, Mike in the group. Have you ever spent military time in Afghanistan? And if so, can you comment on the presence of the Nephilim?
So I was in Afghanistan twice, once for 2008, the whole year, and then I was there again in 2013 for about 6 months. No, I cannot speak to that. I didn't even know about you got to remember at the time when I was there, I had just had my come to Jesus moment in the fall of 2007. Prior to that, I'd been drifting like the prodigal son I was for many, many years, 15 years or so. And so I was complete dummy when it came to anything Bible. So I didn't know anything. I didn't even know what Nephilim was. Like I didn't even know what that was. So I hadn't heard anything while I was there, but the place is so remote and so just cut off from the world. It would be a good place to hide if you were a giant of that, if you were a Nephilim giant or whatever that would be a good place to hide. So, but no, I didn't know anything about that then.
Wow.
Maybe he meant then when LA did that whole thing on that Kandahar giant. Is that probably what he meant?
Well,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know.
LA did a whole lot on the pilots and that when they found that giant. Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah, I
I
couldn't
will.
remember what I heard it from. I couldn't
LA.
remember who had talked about it before, and I thought it might have been you, but it wasn't obviously. So it was somebody else. But they had actually had pilots witness that they airlifted this Nephilim off the wherever it was and transported it someplace else. I was just wondering whether you had heard anything of this, because I mean, I hear it, I understand it, but I put it in my back pocket and I wait to see what plays out.
If you search L.A. Marzulli and the Kandahar giant or the red-headed giant, he's got two. There's two of them. They've got two different pilots that can give you a whole lot of information on what they saw and what they witnessed, and pretty genuine.
So if you ask me if I believe it, I absolutely believe it. And I think that the pilots, even the way that they had come forward and how they were so hesitant, and like I get all that because I felt that same way years later under Obama. And when you look at the Omega letter, when I was writing the Omega letter in 2011 and onward, I had a little bitty picture on my profile. I used Pete Garcia. My real name's Pedro, but the Pete, and then I never changed the profile picture. It was just me in sunglasses, and I was off the coast of Cairns there in the Great Barrier Reef. I was in. There's a picture from I think we're on one of those big pontoon boats when we'd gone out to the reef to go scuba diving. And I had used that for like 8 years. So nobody knew what I looked like. And I wasn't using my legal name. And so I was scared. I didn't tell anybody I was writing. And so when I got brought on to the Omega letter from Jack, he wanted me to write about military stuff. And I'm like, dude, I can't. I mean, I have a SCI clearance, and like I don't want to do anything that could. I mean, because they're just looking for reasons to kick people out of the army for a good 5 or 6 years. As soon as they drew down in Afghanistan or Iraq in 2011, it's kind of like right after the Gulf War in the 90s. As soon as Clinton came in, man, they just gutted the military, and they were gutting people there too. So I wasn't giving anybody any chance to kick me out for whatever reason. And if they'd known that I was writing, absolutely they would have kicked me out. But I didn't know anything about that. But the way that those pilots were acting, it'd be interesting to see them come out now, given the fact that we've had all this disclosure stuff. We've had a lot more pilots, and the military now is much more open to pilots and service members coming forward to discuss this stuff. I don't know if they're still like wanting it to happen, but it doesn't seem to be such a stigma now. And I doubt seriously those pilots are still in the military. I'm sure they're long out, but it'd be interesting to see if there's some disclosure on that. I doubt there will be, but I think if anything happened to that giant, they probably would have taken him back to some black site, CIA black site or DARPA, or somebody would have been studying the DNA and doing, because at the time too, we had really this major advancements with what do you call that, genetic CRISPR and all that kind of stuff was really starting to come out, ancestry.com, and this is around that same period. So I guarantee you somebody's got that thing and they're messing around with the DNA on it. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out, and it probably will 1 second after the rapture. These like Nephilim soldiers come out, and they're all like 8 feet tall and just jacked and got double rows of teeth and whatever. I mean, who knows what could happen?
So dark ops, something like Area 51.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mount Weather. I mean, there's a whole bunch of places they could take it to. Probably places we don't even know about.
I thought possibly personally you might have known some pilots that you had personally talked to, and obviously not, but interesting answer. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Can do we have another question, Diane? Because I wanted to expand on this a little bit.
You had the one with the one that you have in the email.
Okay. Well, it was just Pete, it was just from the standpoint of you touched on the DNA right there. And I've got a little bit of experience just in terms of I've had to edit video with some European stuff going on there where I basically witnessed somebody putting the call out to people to figure out a way to imprint DNA on currency, which was a very interesting question then. So I guess the real question comes down to then all the PCR testing, all the DNA, everything that's been collected. In your opinion, what do you think they're going to do with it?
So I think one of the biggest takeaways from the war on terror, when you think about our 20 years in the Middle East, it's been in biometrics and how we collect data from civilian populations that were engaging militarily, whether it's in Iraq or Afghanistan. You look at the biometric technology, it just blew up. I mean, when we first got there, it wasn't like that at all. But as we began to hold these cities in like Ramadi and in sections of Baghdad and Taji and Mosul and all these other places, we collected a tremendous amount of biometric data. Well, we collected the data, but we didn't have necessarily all the systems in place to do anything with that data. But we've seen since then that the technology for that, and that's why things like Palantir are so dangerous, because they take all that data and they put it into this database. And there's something I want to touch on. It's called SEAS. So if I forget at the end, remind me to go back to SEAS. But I think that when we look at the war on terror, biometrics and drone warfare was one of the two big takeaways from that. And then in surveillance. And then out of the events of 2020, the global pandemic, all that stuff, I think that has been exclusively focused on genetics. And all the testing, you're right. I think the testing was probably more beneficial to them than the shots or whatever that were given out as a means to combat it, which, that's a whole nother subject with the health, implications, et cetera. But I think the testing itself, that to me is fascinating, because taking all that genetic information, and now we have the infrastructure to start putting that into databases and stuff, where to me that is where we're starting to see the merging of biometrics, the genetics, the digital IDs, the facial recognition, the gait, how people walk, the gait surveillance, the iris scans, palm scans. I mean, and not only that, but we also recognize, or the intelligence agencies and science recognize that my little fingerprint, my little fingertip right here, if you were to take all the information in the world that digitally, you could put all that information in my fingerprint, my fingertip.
Wow.
In the world, anything that's digitalized could be stored right there. The human body has a tremendous amount of storage capability in our DNA. And they're just now, I'd say as of the last, 7-8 years, really kind of leaning into that to uncover what can we do with the human body in terms of merging the digital with the genetic, which is how things like Neuralink and Synchron and these other companies are now trying to embed technology into the body. I think Neuralink is probably a very rudimentary early stage of it. It might be functional to a certain degree, but I think they're going to get it down to the probably the best, the most technologically advanced, digitally advanced, whatever you want to call it, the most digitally advanced piece of technology that it's going to come out in our lifetime will be what will become the mark of the beast. Mm-hmm. And that thing will be able to do everything. It's going to be able to protect you from the drones overhead. So now you're marked on your forehead, and these drones aren't going to automatically shoot you or drop a Hellfire missile on you or whatever. It's also going to be what you're linked to your financial systems to. Your financial systems are going to be secured by your DNA. It's also going to allow you access to, everything, to the internet, everything. It probably connects you to the internet in your head. And so to me, the mark is going to be the quintessential. It's going to be the finest technological advancement that mankind has ever made. And it's going to be this little bitty chip like thing that goes on the skin or the forehead or whatever, in the arm or the hand, right hand or the forehead. So that to me is where all of this is leading to. But let me see here.
I think it's really dark. Like there's so much depth to it. Because if you follow LA and the elk of LA and them, LA Mazzuli, probably even Mondo and them, but they're looking for the certain DNA markers. That they're finding, like the hybrids. If you go back to the hybrids, they're looking for the DNA markers. Even with the shots, so we go back to Hitler, they had different vials for different people groups, and they're looking
Yeah.
at the reactions. And even with the recent one, I was always conscious of they're taking whatever your DNA combination is and adding that particular vial, because all around the world got different vials and different groups of people got different vials, and they marked and tracked them all. And you get to hear certain stories of particular groups that died. It's like the MMR one on the children. Unfortunately, like on the Vax movies, it targets black children. Little black children are the most susceptible, to the MMR one. So they target groups and genetics and people groups, and they're looking for markers. And there are people that seem to be resistant to certain things, and they're looking for those markers too. So everywhere you go, they're harvesting DNA for a lot of nefarious stuff that we'll only even know the tip of the iceberg for.
But we know where this is going. We know that what they're going to end up doing is they're going to find out how they can trace everybody that's Jewish. And you got to think about it. Satan's ultimate goal is to wipe out the Jewish people, because if he wipes out the Jewish people, he can break prophecy. Then his fate is not sealed into the lake of fire. That ultimately is where all this is going to go to. So I think he would even encourage the world leaders today to make Aliyah. That's why we're seeing all these anti-Semitism just blowing up around the world. It's designed to drive the Jews, all the Jews, back to one place, so that they can, his beast kingdom, when that finally arrives, can stamp it out once and for all. And like, for example, I'm about 4% Jewish. And my sister and my mom did the whole DNA stuff a couple of years ago. And so for my dad's side, I've got like 2% Sephardic and then 2% Ashkenazi. And so even anybody that has any Jewish DNA, they want to target those people and completely eradicate them forever, so that God will have broken his promise. This is Satan's plan, I think, is to get God to break his promise to the Jewish people by just either destroying the land or destroying the people, or both. And I think that's what he's feverishly working towards. Let me go back to this real quick. So it's called SEAS, the Synthetic Environment for Analysis and Simulations. It used to be called the World Sentient Simulation Program. And it started back in Purdue University back in, I want to say the early 2004. And so what it began, think about it like the video game SimCity. If you remember SimCity, where you have a little city, a digital video game, and you have your little avatars on there and you get things going, you're kind of playing God in this, where you get the city going. And then you can walk away from the game, go away for 2 weeks, come back, whatever. And the characters are still building and doing whatever they're doing, right? And you have to kind of manage those cities. This is on a global scale. Everybody that has a digital footprint in the world has an avatar in this system that the DHS is using, or the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Defense still uses this program. It's still running. I have an avatar. You have an avatar, John, Sue, Diane, we all have these avatars in the system. And what they do is they develop patterns of life based off of our avatars, based off of our digital footprint. So it goes to the websites that we go to. It travels. If I go from here to down the street to the grocery store and I draw money out of an ATM, that's captured. I'm paying something with my ATM or my debit card at another place. So what it does is, now that they have the artificial intelligence to kind of take all that data and make sense of it in real time, they very quickly can establish patterns of life. It sees where I travel to, right? So let's say I had a family member in Colorado. My parents were in Colorado and I lived in Texas. Well, then I go there every Christmas, right? So then it establishes that pattern of life that I go there. In the event that Dallas and Fort Worth is nuked or some big thing happens here, where am I going to go? The likelihood is I'm probably going to go to Colorado. So they can start doing all this predictive programming as well, based on my patterns of life. And Ring cameras, your GPS in your cars, there's, even if you don't have anything in your house, I mean, you go to your neighbor's house across the street, they might have a Ring camera on their car, on their front door, capturing your license plate in your car. It knows when you arrive. I mean, there's no way to escape it unless you completely are off grid and you live somewhere that Starlink isn't covering, some spot of land that doesn't have some satellite, parked overhead, taking photos every 5 seconds. So to me, they are wargaming the system right now, fine tuning it and doing things like 2020 to see what people do in these periods of high turmoil. And man, I'm telling you, when the beast kingdom comes, there's not going to be anywhere to run. There's not going to be anywhere to hide. And if you're one of the post-toasties and the mid-wrath or pre-wrath, mid-tribbers, you think that you're going to survive this thing, you're not. You're lying to yourself. There's no, going back to Daniel 7, he's going to crush this fourth beast is dreadful and terrible, and it's going to crush the whole world. And I'm telling you, there's not going to be any place to hide. And I think it's only going to be by God supernaturally protecting people is the only way that they're going to be able to make it through it to the end.